Well, good evening. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And you guys, it's been a day. Okay, so I know some of you were thinking Dr. Patrick Moore, former Greenpeace, now, what would I call him? Sensible forest management expert. He's an environmental consultant, but not the kind you think. He was supposed to be on the show tonight. Excuse me. He's in Ireland. I'm in Montana. He got the times mixed up. So it's 9 o'clock there right now, so it's a little weird. So 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So anyway, we're gonna tape it up on Friday. We'll have it next Wednesday, so that interview will be here. But I've been scrambling on the phone, and that's when you do. That's what it reminds me of being a news guy again. When you have to get on there and go, I gotta find a story. I gotta find a story, and I found some great stuff for you. Bill Lundun's going to be joining us on his way home in his car. We're going to talk about some of the things going on here. And then I have a guest, Kim Rice. She's running for the Senate up in the Portland area, Beaverton, Aloha. And imagine this, having some problems with those little Antifa people and what's going on and some of the vandalism. So, if we can't in Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Washington, in the United States of America, have an election and not have people vandalizing signs and property, that's just such crap. And it's like, what I want to say to people that do that is grow up. I mean, come on. That is so juvenile. You have the mind of a 2-year-old to do something like that. So it's been going on in the Portland area. Ben Idle, he's been on our show before. He's having signs stolen. But this case, she actually got him arrested. But of course, with our court system, catch and release, in and out. So our show tonight is sponsored by Buck Sanitary Service. If you're having a wedding, a party, an event, hire Bucks. They're our sponsors. So if you like what we're doing, we want you to pay attention to our sponsors. Buck Sanitary Service has been with us the longest of all of our clients. So I guess we have something in common. They take stuff and I dish out crap. So we're all in this together. Dr. Michael Bratlin with Chris Dental Family Dentistry. He supports our show every night. And listen to this. This is why.
This is Dr. Michael Bratlin from Chris Dental. Our response to COVID was absolutely wrong. We should never have locked down, never kept our children from going to school, never been required to wear those stupid, ineffective masks for years, never fired people for not getting vaccinated. Those that were in charge and imposed their dictatorship on the rest of us should at minimum lose their jobs. This November and every election to come, never forget what these people did to us and our children.
He minces words, doesn't he? I can't quite get where he's coming from. There's a whole series of ads coming out, and he's another one of our sponsors. And also Albert Taylor, Endless Possibilities, working with people in our community with disabilities and different abilities to make sure that they have a good life. They're another sponsor of ours. So we got Bill Lundun coming up, and we have a new segment coming on that's going to be on Mondays normally, but we got a weather guy. Brian Miskimmons, he's a friend of mine. He used to be at Coyne in Portland. Now he lives here in Montana up in Polson. And he has a forecast that's going to tell Oregonians and Montanans and Idahoans and Washingtonians the weather's about to change and the snow is on the way. So that's coming up a little bit later as well. But let's start with Kim Rice. Hi, Kim. How you doing?
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me on.
So tell people this has made the news. This is all over, the Portland area. People are talking about it because it's not uncommon for, and this isn't your wording, it's mine, but I hate vandalism. I think vandalism is the most chintzy, it's the most chicken crap thing you can do. I mean, if you can't face people, and say something to go around stealing their signs, but tell people what happened with this girl from Antifa, what was going on.
Yeah, so for weeks I've had signs go missing. I've had them defaced and of all sizes, yard size, the 4x4s and the big field signs as well. And then last Saturday, I got a phone call from a supporter who actually works for the county GOP and does social media. And he follows Antifa people. And he saw an Antifa lead, one of the Portland leads, bragging on her social media about her cleaning up the litter program in her neighborhood. And she showed the picture of my signs and other conservative and other candidate signs, minus the Democrat signs, in the back of her trunk. And in the comments, admitted that she had taken these signs. And you know what? That to me is so ridiculous, because I'm a grassroots candidate on just a tiny budget.
Right.
And I'm ready to win this seat. It hasn't been challenged in over 10 years. So I'm just thinking, this is stealing from my supporters who've given so generously to help me buy these campaign signs. And I called and reported it. And, you know, she was arrested and she was arraigned. So yeah,
she
I'm
was
not going to be
they put her-
bullied about, yeah,
they
I'm not
put
going
her-
to be bullied.
No, they did put her in jail and then released her, or just took her in and then released her.
Yeah, I think they just booked her and released her. She came back to be
Yeah, rang about
arraigned.
that too, I heard.
Yeah, so it's, you know, she then posted again about, oh, I hurt somebody's feelings, and, you know, yeah, it was like a badge of honor for her to be arrested. So she posted her, you know, her booking picture with an emoji of some sunglasses covering her eyes, and, you know, I'm just ready for accountability, Rick, because we are so ready for change here in Oregon. Even the Democrats are telling me they have got to get new leadership. They understand what's at stake. And, you know, we can't have our rights trampled. This is freedom of speech to have
Right.
political signs out, and to take them down is election interference.
And that's not that's a felony. Isn't that, is that a
Mhm.
felony?
Yeah, well, I'm
So-
hoping there's real accountability, because crime is spiraling in our county. It's rolling over from Portland, from Multnomah County into Washington County, and all kinds of problems. So I'm really running to represent people. I'm an everyday person. I've never ran for politics before, but I'm here to take back our economy, our education, and our rights. People don't realize our rights are still being infringed here with these vaccine mandates and mask mandates.
Do you think this is where Governor Brown and her supporters really messed up? Because I think they've been so used to pushing Oregonians for so many years and getting away with it, and having enough support from their party that they could do it. But I think now, when you push so hard that now you've destroyed the economy, you're impacting people's lives, Democrats, independents, non-affiliates, Republicans, libertarians, and I think people are pissed.
They are.
Because so is that what gets? I mean, here's someone. You're not the first. I talked to Sean, who's running in Multnomah County. I mean, they haven't had an opposition in Multnomah County for 25 years. You're in one that hasn't had opposition for 10 years. Do you think this is just lit a fire under people's butts and saying, okay, you know what? This isn't what I was planning, but somebody has to stand up and do something.
Yes, I mean, people are so angry, and what they see is all of these years and decades of policies have only made everything worse. And especially the last couple of years of the lockdown, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was a teacher for 27 years. Those last couple of years teaching online remotely, I think opened the eyes of a lot of parents about what is really going on, or where things have been going. And I wanted to let you know, Rick, today is the 1-year anniversary that my school district removed me from my teaching position. They removed me because I would not comply with the mandates. I knew it was unjust and unconstitutional, and I was not even going to participate. So I'm telling you, I was teaching kindergarten, and I could not stand with what they were doing in the classroom. Of course, I wasn't doing it, but with what they were telling our staff to do, with what they were telling us not to teach, not just what we were going to teach, but how they were going to omit and revise our American history. We have to stop this dead in its tracks.
Right.
The harm has been done to children, and we need to recover our children and protect them.
I read a report and it was saying that they, and this wasn't like a right wing report, because some of my viewers out there who like to, tinkle on me. It's like that's not what this is. And it was
No.
saying the devastation and damage that we did to our kids, that kids and these kids in 30 and 40 years will probably have very difficult time finding a career and a job because of the educational stunting that was done by this. So, and the point was, did we look at I think that's the big problem for me, Kim. When people started telling people like myself and you to stop asking questions and just do what they tell you to do, that's a warning sign, because then we're not looking at the bigger picture of this whole thing. Is that so? Education is obviously a focus for you, right?
Right. It's huge, because that's the future of our state. And last year, Kate Brown removed graduation standards, and she changed learning standards for people of color. I can't believe anything that could be more racist than that, than to tell children that they cannot be successful, that they cannot achieve. So I'm going to Salem for a lot of reasons, but it is to bring back. We are like 44th or worse in the nation in terms of academic excellence.
I think it's like 48th or something. The other thing, it's unacceptable, and the
depending on
depending on the
argument
spend, and that they're so I'm going to guess that you're very pro school choice.
Absolutely. In fact, we're going to the event tonight for Christine Drazen. Governor Glenn Youngkin is coming in from Virginia, and there's going to be Donna Kreitzberg. She's one of the lawyers that's been writing the initiative petitions that we can get in place. It's going to be on the ballot 2024. Choice, which is open enrollment, and then separately money following the student. And we need to flip the legislature here in Oregon. We need a Republican governor, and we need a legislature that is going to stop the tyranny and roll back some of the things that they've already done in our state. We have got to stop this direction.
All right, Kim Rice, have fun at the Drazen event tonight. Thank you for coming on and talking about that. And I'm glad that you're, standing up to Antifa, because I think that, and what I was listening to Jordan Peterson this morning, and I know you're a fan too, and he was talking, and they were talking about some of the different movements going on in this country. They said the biggest problem is that corporations and universities are folding rather than standing up and saying, Kim Rice, as a teacher in our school, we believe in freedom of speech, and we believe that's the way that education should go. If they would have done that, half of these movements would fall away, because what they do is they prey on somebody who gets scared and then goes, "Oh, we're sorry. You can't do that anymore. You can't be sorry. You have to go in and say, you know what? Bullshit on you. You do not get to do that." And I'm really glad that you're standing up to him. And I think you should go. Isn't Kevin Barton like your district attorney or something?
Yes. Yes. And I heard through the grapevine that he's had signs stolen too. So I hope we all get some accountability there. My website's kimriceforOregon.com. Just want your viewers to know and appreciate all the support. I'm an America First, Oregon First candidate. So I'm running for real voice for the people, real change in Oregon.
All right. Thanks, Kim Rice. I appreciate you. See you later.
Thanks.
And we got a comment on here. Steve Snyder. Once again, an out of state in capital letters, because that makes it a big deal. Media person messing with Oregon politics. Love you, Rick. Obviously you don't, but you left because of Oregon because it was too fucked up for you. Please mess with Montana. Also, when Betsy gets Kotek elected, she had better run Betsy run. If she truly cared about Oregon, she would now put all her support to Drazen and to ensure her to get Kotek's out. If she was concerned about Oregon and not her giant ego, I know you are a smart guy. Please help us here. Steve, you know what? You don't like Betsy. And I'm not going to shut up. about Oregon. This is my home, my former home, and I can say whatever the hell I want. And I think your passive aggressive attitude on here, I'm just not going to put up with that shit. Perhaps Betsy knows more than you do. Maybe what Betsy's doing is realizing that if you looked at the polling, Steve, and knew something about this, Drazen might not even be in the lead at this point if it weren't for Betsy in there. And so you might be cutting off your nose to spite your face. And so maybe she's staying in there because she understands something about politics that you don't understand. Now, I'm sure you're an expert. I don't know what you do, but I'm sure. And besides, you know what? I did this before. I do know what I'm doing. I ran for Secretary of State and I dealt with people like you who think they know everything and don't know shit. So I'm glad that you love me, but you just slapped me upside the head. So don't give me your passive aggressive bullshit. Bill Lundun, welcome.
Aggressive bullshit, huh?
Oh, Betsy said the F word last night. She was throwing it around like you wouldn't believe.
Where at?
On my show.
Oh, I missed it. I'll have to watch that.
You have to go back. She asks me all the time before she goes on, Bill. She'll go, so dancer, now can I cuss on here? I'm like, yeah, you can cuss. And then she fires off the F bombs. So, Bill, how are you?
How am I?
Yeah.
Well, 2022 has been an interesting go on a personal level. Other than that, it's another election year and it's the clown show.
What do you mean by the clown show?
Election year is always a clown show.
But do you think this year that this is just, I was listening to Jordan Peterson today on the podcast, and the other day I heard Joe Rogan, and they were saying the world is just turned upside down. People are just, it's like, I'm sure Steve's a nice guy, but people come on here and it's like, if you want freedom of speech, you have to allow me to have freedom of speech. And you can't tell me what I can and can't talk about I would never tell you what you can and can't talk about. It's like this narcissistic bullshit.
I kind of think in one way, actually being out of Oregon as opposed to being immersed directly in it, where you're surrounded by it, having lived here as long as you have, being in a completely different place with a completely different, I don't know that society is the right word, or culture.
No, that's culture.
And I think that actually the distance actually gives you at times maybe even a clearer view of what's going on, as opposed to you're neck deep in it.
No, I completely agree with you. And I don't think people like Steve understand that is, for me, I come back and then people go, well, why do you, it's not that bad. And I'm going, no, when you come back from being in a place where you truly can say anything you want, and it's not because everybody around you is a red person. I went to a barber, and she was a really cool lady, tatted up, and the hair, and just and she's a lesbian and a really cool lady. I really like her, and we start talking, and then I'm finding myself hedging on what I'm thinking because that's what I had to do all the time in Oregon. And pretty soon she just goes, I don't care what you think. Just tell me what you think. And we had this honest, open conversation. And guess what? I have no idea whether she's a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a libertarian. I don't know, because we had such a decent conversation. It reminded me of Oregon 30 years ago when it wasn't about what party you were in and you didn't have to hedge. So I think I feel freer now to go on to be able to just say, and I do offer my perceptions because I'm seeing what's going on around, and it's not like that everywhere. It's not even like that in Baker City, Oregon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, the Western Valley is its own world.
So
anyway,
so what else is going on? Like the big stuff going on in Lane County right now. Is the smoke cleared up yet? I've seen pictures and posts and people talking.
Here, look in the background. Can you see the haze?
Yeah.
So that is just north of Eugene, closer to Oak Ridge. The particulate, the air matter, or the particulate in the air is off the charts. And when I say that, I mean, they literally, if you look at El Rapa's website, they go from good to moderate, caution, unhealthy, and then it's hazardous. Well, we're pinned in the hazardous in Oak Ridge. God help them. And it's not really good here, but it's not that bad as
Well,
it is
Kim
for in
Stark,
Oak Ridge.
Kim Stark lives out towards, towards Oak Ridge area, just not all the way out there, but out by Pleasant Hill, that area. And she said they were at 276 or something the other day, which is just huge. I mean,
yeah, well, if you're in Oak Ridge, you're in excess of 451.
so Bill, in
That's
terms
not
of the
good.
election, what today was the last day you can register to vote, right?
Right.
In Oregon. And then
Yeah, you can still register up until 11:59 tonight if you go to the Secretary of State's website. What is it? OregonVotes.gov.
do you know that in Montana, I guess some people can do absentee ballots and that kind of stuff, but we still go to the poll.
That must be nice.
I can't wait. I haven't done this since I remember going to Camp Creek Church in Springfield when we first moved out there for maybe 1 or 2 years. And then it all changed over to vote by mail. And
I miss it too. Part of it, what I miss about it, besides the little old ladies in the Chanel number 5, was, well, it was, it was a group of little old ladies with their Chanel number 5, and they had like Oreo cookies or whatever, and you vote, you get a cookie. Actually, what I miss about it was sort of the aspect of community. And you would be standing in line getting ready to vote, and here's your neighbors, and here's people that live in the neighborhood. Where do you live? Oh, I live down by the park. Oh, are you in the house that? Yeah. And I looked at it as not only democracy in action, but I also looked at it as kind of really a building a sense of community.
right.
I don't know, that may sound like, God, this guy's from like 80 years ago. But it really did have that community feel to it, and it was great. Now, I always wait until the last day and I go down to my local library so I can put the envelope in the ballot box, just because it kind of feels like that.
Right.
I mean, you can argue about whether vote by mail is safe or otherwise, but I don't like what we lost in the process with it.
Right.
Um,
There's some accountability to having to, and I'll just be really honest. I think there's some accountability to that. And for people to have to show up, I'm not one of these people who thinks everybody should vote. If you don't know what the hell you're talking about and you're getting it from the voters pamphlet and that's how you're voting, I'm not sure that we really need you voting. And, my son once said, maybe everybody should take a civics course in order to get permission to vote. Now that's probably going a little too far, but the point.
Well, they do it to people that are getting their citizenship here in this country. You got to go take all the civics courses and all the other courses to become an American citizen. And that allows you to vote, or until they change the law here in Oregon where you don't have to be a citizen like they're trying to do in New York.
Right. I don't know why you want the masses, everybody just get them in there and vote. It's like, well, if people want to vote, then I think they should vote. If somebody doesn't want to vote, then you don't get to bitch. So if you don't like the way things are going, then you don't get to complain about it. But I don't certainly want people voting who just go in there and go, oh, let's make a Christmas tree out of the little boxes. I mean, that
I look at, I have another take on it. And this is probably going to piss some people off.
Oh, not you.
I have no problem, and I don't understand why people have a problem going to a place to vote and having to show your voter ID card. You go to a pot shop, for God's sakes, and you have to show ID to get into the pot shop to buy weed. If you're willing to do that, why would you be less willing to do it for something way more important than, getting, a good deal on some bud? Why is it so difficult
I agree.
And what makes it so hard, and why is it so, it's an inequity somehow. If you have to show a card,
Right.
you have to show a card for
It's
everything.
horse shit. Because when I ran for office, I used to say, I'd use in my campaign thing, I say, back in the day, to go to Hollywood or Blockbuster Video and rent a movie, I have to show a driver's license. But to vote in Oregon, I don't. I mean, that's ridiculous. And why? I guess what always kind of gets me is if you don't require, why would you be against ID unless that you have some ulterior motive? I don't understand why that's bad. You know what I mean? Because what are you trying to hide? What's the point? If somebody has their identification, an ID card, and now like in Montana, we get a license and you get it's just some kind of an ID card at the same time. It becomes both. You have to fill out more paperwork, but it becomes both. So you just hand them that and then they know who you are. And I remember we used to do that all the time. I think Oregon should bring that back in terms of somehow to register to vote. I have no problem requiring people to show their driver's license or some form of birth certificate, some form of ID to say you're okay to vote because you're here.
Well, a voter registration card is an easy way to do that. And it's not like you had to go through, all of these inequitable hoops to do it.
Right.
I mean, is it inequitable now? All of a sudden, is it an inequity that if you go into a bar, they're going to card you so that you can buy a beer?
Right.
Or to 7-Eleven? I mean, are you going to go to 7-Eleven? Somebody says, "Can I see your ID?" Are you going to scream, "You're being a racist, you bastard. I'm trying to buy beer." How dare you, you son of a bitch. I'm taking you to the NAACP because you, sir, are a racist.
Bill, I was listening to Peterson today and they were talking about how there's a change where I think people are so fed up with the woke and the the cancel culture and the censorship that I think people are just now, it's like, okay, I'm done. I personally don't care anymore. It's kind of easier for me when I'm in Montana too, because people here are fine with, what I'm talking about. And I don't have to walk down the street of Eugene anymore and have people walk by and go, because I can't hear them. It doesn't matter.
Well, they're going to do that anyway. They're going to do that regardless of what if you're wearing the wrong kind of shirt, like I'm willing to bet that probably if I walk down through the Wit in Eugene, wearing like, say, what they call a hickory shirt, which is a logging shirt, I guarantee you'd get the same freaking response just because you're not wearing the right apparel.
So can you read Liz's comment in your phone?
That people have no problem giving ID and their whole life history to get food stamps and welfare. True.
I think we've become such a,
and do people mind going to Safeway with their little special Safeway ID card so they can get 5% off cottage cheese?
Right.
They don't think anything about pulling that card out, which has all sorts of information about you, like everything in your life that you've ever bought at Safeway when you've used that card. They don't have any problem with it. But for some reason, voting, oh no, you're making it difficult to vote.
Yeah, May.
No more difficult than anything else in life that's really fucking easy.
May, Bill already brought that up. He was already talking about the weed store. May says, or ID or weed store. It's so hypocritical because it's like, but I think that's the good thing that I think that the reaction to COVID and all this has done is people have been woken up, not woke up, but awoken up. And now we're starting to see that, this is hypocrisy. You can't tell me, what I have to do. And then it's like Peterson was talking to some folks about climate change. And he was saying, you can't tell people, that they have to wear a mask and they have to do all this stuff and then turn around and tell them that recycling works because it really doesn't. This is what they were talking about, that it really doesn't drop anything. And they say, so you have to be consistent with what you're talking about. So, hey, Anthony, how you doing? So, Bill, big stories for this week for you. I know you're going to be doing your newscast on Thursday, sending it to me tomorrow, but airing on Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's more just, the obviously election news. I'm surprised in some regards that we haven't heard a lot more about some of the ballot measures. 114 is probably the one that's kind of sucked
That's
all the
crazy.
air.
I had
Well,
them on my show the other night, the people with against 114. That's a scary, and I think it's going to pass because I don't think people know about it. And it sounds like it's going to do something when we all know it's not.
well, I think that you are going to see, it would not surprise me if some of the moneyed opponents of that particular thing haven't already lawyered up, haven't already drawn the legal papers up, and if it passes, they're going to be in front of a judge and they're going to get a stay put on it.
Yeah, Betsy
Because
Johnson said this will be in court for a decade.
yeah, there's no way. I mean, some of the things that are on there, there's no way that well, there are already. I mean, there's something like 11 different things in there that are already deemed to be unconstitutional.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that we're going to see it go into effect, or if it ever does, for a really long time. The other one that I think really is onerous is healthcare as a human right, because what it's doing is really setting the table for universal healthcare in Oregon. And I think 3 weeks ago on your show, I think I did the story about the legislative committee. They have this thing in Salem called Legislative Days. And it's where the legislators get together in their different little conferences and they talk about what their agendas are going to be and what they want to accomplish and what they want to do in the next legislative session. And this one committee passed it along that, we want to put together a bill and we want to get it passed that would create universal health care in Oregon. And this is something that we've heard Tina Kotek talk about before. We've heard Governor Kate Brown talk about it before. And by making it a constitutional right in Oregon, they've set the table to say, well, we have to create it now because it is a human right. So we have to do this.
Right.
Just the ballpark numbers that came out of this committee were, well, we're going to have to raise taxes on individuals about $22 billion. It would be a payroll tax. And then Medicare and Medicaid, or the federal government through Medicare and Medicaid, will give us another $33 billion a year. So we're talking about a $55 billion a year bureaucracy in Oregon. The same state that couldn't get a simple website to work to enroll people in insurance that they paid $300 million for. Not one person was signed up on that site. $300 million. This is the same state that couldn't get unemployment checks out for people during the pandemic. This is the same state that blew $250 million on the Columbia River crossing, or as I like to call it, Oregon's bridge that never was, on planning that, what was it, a decade and a half ago. I mean, you can start going down all the things that Oregon bureaucracy has failed on, and now you're going to create what would be the single biggest bureaucracy in the state of Oregon, and that's going to work?
Well, I think that's all the more that people need to get down and on November 8th and vote. You need to get a ballot cast in there because the crazy has to stop in Oregon. I mean, it has to stop in the country, but and I know people go, "Oh, don't compare to Montana," but I mean, that's just the biggest question, Bill, that people ask me still when I say I'm from Oregon, which is after I tell them I'm not from California, because that's the answer you give people when they ask where are you from. You say not California, I'm from Oregon. But the biggest, did they seriously pass that measure that legalized like use of heroin and hard drugs and stuff. I mean, they think we are absolutely insane that they can't even fathom how could anybody sell that to the voters in Oregon. They don't get it, and I have to laugh and go, yeah, no kidding. It's and then they go, well, then they wonder why all the homeless people come there. I'm going, well, it's where Oregon's creating economic development by creating Club Med for any not homeless person, but any person in the country who doesn't want to do anything and just suck off the system.
Yeah, well, it's the homeless industrial complex in Oregon.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. You covered a bunch of things there. I guess, I mean, the whole drug thing. How's that worked out for us? There was a thing in Newsweek about that. That's what I was going to say on ballot measure 110. And this was, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something like that. And they were talking about how it's going in Oregon. And they actually asserted that the drug laws in Oregon will now be a model for other states looking to decriminalize. And I'm like, a model?
Yeah.
How about a model of what not to do and how not to do it? And here's a million reasons why you don't even want to consider it. That's the only model that I could see it as. We're not a role model, that's for sure.
It is interesting because 30 years ago, Oregon was, first bottle bill. I mean, we had a lot of firsts and things where we were innovative about different things. Now we've become the state, or you've become the state, where don't do as I say, not as I do. Don't follow what we're doing, because we'll do all these really crazy, weird things and they'll flop. And then the rest of you can go, okay, that didn't work. Now don't do that. So where we used to lead people, now we're showing them what not to do. And
well, in Oregon, the way that they deal with it is sort of like Tina Kotek said about ballot measure 110. You had Johnson and you had Drazen that both said, if I'm elected, I am going to refer that back to the people if I can, and let people vote on it again. The way that they handle it in Oregon is when something goes utterly gunny and augers into the side of a mountain in a big mushroom cloud of fire and smoke, instead of saying, yeah, that was a bad idea, they say, well, we just haven't given it enough time. We have to give it more time. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Let the fire continue to spread. Let it completely engulf all the trees on the mountain in fire, and then the valley below. And then we'll say, yeah, it was bad, but if we just give it a little more time, it'll get better.
Bill, it's kind of like, it's also like when the city, I mostly think of the city of Eugene with this, but they put before a ballot measure and voters overwhelmingly say no. Well, okay, now we'll spend $10,000 to figure out what about it you didn't like, and then we're going to bring it back. So then they take the same thing, they bring it back. Then it goes down again. Then they take out more and they reword it. And see, I think it's like, can you not understand? People said, no, why don't you move on to something different? But remember that? I mean, all the years I covered things where you go, it wasn't over until, it was over. And
it wasn't over until they got their way.
Right, exactly.
It's like, what do we have to do to convince these people to give us what it is that they don't like, but we want them to have to live under or abide by?
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, I know you stopped on the side of the road to talk to me, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And that was
it's my pleasure.
That was super fun.
And, honestly, if you look around, it's kind of pretty out here. So, got to spend a little bit of the evening outside, which is nice, even if it is smoky.
All right. Bill Lundun, we'll see you on Thursday.
All right. Tape. Sounds good.
All right. See you, buddy.
Take care, Rick.
Bye-bye. All right. Bill Lundun, always a good conversation, the guy who knows what's going on and will give you a different perspective. So May, who's on here, and her husband, Tim, are doctors, and they do a show called BS Free MD. Tomorrow night, we'll be talking with them about the perfect diet. Now, what it means, I don't know, but they're comical. They're actually very smart people, and they do really good, but they're also very entertaining. New client, they're going to be coming on tomorrow. We're going to do a show with them. So I was reading on my phone today and talking to Brian Misgivens, and he is a friend of mine. And he is a former weatherman out of Portland at a Coin TV in Portland. He now lives in Polson, Montana. So once a week, he's going to start doing a weather forecast for whoever has the most interesting weather. Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. And right now, a new cold front's coming in. And I saw on my phone, right after I get off of here, I'm going to go out and unplug all my hoses from my faucets because we're getting down to 24 tonight. And I see snow in the forecast for Sunday. Brian, what's that all about?
Well, thank you, Rick, and a very good Tuesday afternoon to you. Coming to you from the weather deck. I couldn't, turn down an opportunity to step outside this afternoon. What a great time it's been. All across the Pacific and inland Northwest, we have been seeing day upon day upon day of beautiful sunny skies. A little bit of smoke, a little bit of haze. I was explaining in yesterday's video, lower sun angle this time of the year combined with very light wind and the sinking air that's associated with high pressure. You get those three things, and that's what's going to lead to some smoke and some haze in the valleys, and that's what we're seeing. That all changes. First front starts to roll through the inland and Pacific Northwest on Thursday. That'll be a mainly dry, cold front, but it's going to open the door. It's also going to help usher in some breezier conditions later Thursday. Now, as we go into Friday, here's where the bigger change starts to come in. Big trough of low pressure drops in from the Gulf of Alaska. As it does so, we're going to see rain arriving along the I-5 corridor during Friday afternoon. So your Friday afternoon commute will be wet, and then Friday evening football games in the Pacific Northwest looking wet as well. Now, meanwhile, here in the northern Rockies, Idaho, Montana, it's going to take a little bit longer for that rain to get here, but probably by game time Friday night, we might even begin to see some of those rain showers. Some of the forecast maps and models I'm looking at right now are saying that the cool trough that's going to be associated with this sticks around all the way into next week. And in fact, one I just looked at before jumping on this video says the snow level comes right down to the valley floors by Saturday morning in the northern Rockies here in western and central Montana. So we'll be watching that over the coming days. But of course, that is something. Meanwhile, Pacific Northwest I-5 corridor, you're talking about rain showers. As I used to say when I was on television, the liquid sunshine that we so desperately need and love, but it's also going to help blow out some of that smoke. So really good news there, and of course we certainly need the rain. Meanwhile, for those of you that have any hunters here up in the backcountry, especially here in Montana, of course, hunting season getting underway, a good idea. Do not let today and tomorrow's weather fool you. It's going to turn very wintry up in the backcountry. In fact, we could be talking, by the time we get into next week, feet of snow up in the high country here in Montana. So plan accordingly if you're heading out hunting this weekend. But in the meantime, enjoy the next couple of days of sunshine and above average temperatures, because we're saying goodbye to it as we go into the weekend with below average temperatures and the rain returning to the valleys, as well as mountain snow. And as I mentioned, even the threat of some valley snow here in western Montana. With that, Rick, I'm going to send it back over to you.
And joining us is John and Peggy Devereaux. They are part of the Albert Taylor gang.
Yes.
How long have you guys been with Albert Taylor, Peggy?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Since the early 80s?
In the 80s,
So
we couldn't do anything without Josh.
Well, you could do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Josh takes us to Wendy's,
Thrift shopping.
grocery shopping.
I mean, and honestly, they see the best in people, and people tend to see the best in them. They're honestly some of the most accepting and friendly people that I know.
right. So again, we want to thank our sponsors, Buck Sanitary Service, Albert Taylor, and Dr. Michael Bratland with Chris Dental Family Dentistry. All right, again, tomorrow night, same time, right here, BS Free MD, The Perfect Diet. And then on Thursday, we have a chainsaw artist from Oregon, a young woman who's going to be joining us. And Kim Stark's going to be talking with El Rapa about the smoke. And Bill Lundun will be here with more daily news. So that's it. Share this on your page. Let other people know what's going on. They will love tonight's show. Those who don't, they'll just unfollow me. It's okay.